Hey everyone, you probably saw the title and you're wondering what the fuck I'm on about. And some of you may already know what these are, these small pieces of cardboard. Um, I collected these all through my teens and into my adulthood, and these 5 games that I have represented here aren't even the ones I have had the largest collection for, and they're not even like maybe 1/5 of what I played. That's how deep I got into that rabbit hole growing up, and to an extent, still am a little bit. So to go back into before I go back into my childhood and explain how I got into this, I have to explain what the term cardboard crack is. There are a lot of people in our society and our nation who are addicted to opening small packs and pulling out cards like this. This is a trainer collection. I forgot what set. It's Trainer Gallery Flareon from a set a while back. In my closet, I actually also have Vaporeon and Jolteon because I really like this set of 3 cards. This was a set I actually opened a few packs in order to pull these 3 cards specifically. I also have here represented Magic the Gathering. This is the granddaddy of them all. This is where a lot of people's addiction started. I have Digimon. This was a more recent addition and one that I actually greatly enjoyed and would recommend everyone try playing at least once. I have Battle Spirits, which is a game I was actually a judge for. And we tried to get going off the ground but didn't pick up as much steam, but it's one of my favorites and I really enjoy it. And this one here is Gundam, which was a decently lackluster game that I got into because I'm into the anime that this is a reference from and is licensed off of. But to give you a perspective of just how long I've been involved in card games and explain why I love card games, it's one of my main interests and hobbies. We have to go back to when I was 13. I grew up in a household that didn't have many video games or like more contemporary toys. We often weren't allowed them. My mother would often form very, very strong opinions on them. But one we managed to slip under her nose before we got into video games was Bakugan. I have a shoebox in my closet. Well, I don't know, actually, it's up there. I have the OG Bakugan series because that's something that we managed to I managed to get it with some birthday money and slip it out of the store before my mom had really Googled it and knew what it was. She had her own objections to Bakugan, but it was the first card game and toy-based game that I got. It was the first thing that really sparked my passion for this genre of toys and games. I, to this day, have this in my possession. If any of y'all know which specific version of Drago this is, you know what set it comes from, and you would know the accomplishment is that I actually have that set in that shoebox back there. Um, but yeah, this little toy, it folds up into a marble that, when rolled over a metal card called gate cards, would pop open and you would use them to play a game, and I really enjoyed that gimmick. I had a small collection of Bakugan. My brother and sister did as well, and it became our passion for a long time, along with Legos, Nerf guns, and Star Wars. It was those things that my mother had her issues with, but that she couldn't really stop us from being interested in. It was just something we liked. But then I made the jump from Bakugan, which is something I just watched online. It was the first anime I ever watched, and playing the game with my siblings, to Pokemon. I first discovered Pokemon online. I watched some of the anime and gameplay footage on YouTube because that's where my brother and I got a lot of our entertainment. I think I mentioned my online socializing in the last video. And the anime and card game really piqued my interest because it was the first time I had seen this kind of stuff, you know, on my screen. I got in around X and Y. The Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire had just released. And the card game really piqued my interest. It was the first time I had seen the concept outside Bakugan of really assembling your own deck of cards you've collected and playing games with them. It was it was this weird interaction where every game was different because you had customized your deck. And yeah, there's net decking and meta cards and all that, but it was the first time I had really interacted with these kinds of mechanics, with deciding what energy ratio you want in your deck, what trainers go with what Pokemon, shit like that. And I ended up going to Pokemon.com, and I don't know if they still have it, but back then they had a league finder, and I found out that there was a local league that played games at a Burger King, probably less than about 10 or so minutes from my house. Like, we lived outside the city limit, but it was right at the edge of the city limit, so it was actually very accessible to me. And I convinced my parents to let me get some Pokemon cards and go play. So we did. I got something called the Mega Metagross Collection. I think I saw the mat somewhere, and that became the first deck that I ever played, was a metal type Pokemon deck. And from there, I would spend any last bit of money I got growing up, because I didn't go to school and didn't have a job. I would get a little bit of money once in a while, and I'd immediately spend it on Pokemon. And I amassed a large collection. That's always what I wanted for my birthday or Christmas, was Pokemon cards. I would open the packs, I would build decks, I would play. I was never really that good at it, but I loved the experience. I met some people there that I used to be friends with, and they were really fun to hang out around. I loved the atmosphere. We'd eat shitty Burger King food, we'd trade cards, and we'd play cards. And that's what got me into collecting. When you open packs, there's a certain like dopamine rush. It's why we call it cardboard crack. You crack open a pack and you get the hit. It's like the it card, the rare card. These are the big expensive cards you see people bragging about online, but that's a whole nother issue. It's those cards that, you've wanted this card ever since you started playing the game, and suddenly you open a pack and there it is. You get the biggest card from the newest set. Stuff like that. It's hard to explain. Like, it's almost like a euphoria. It's excitement that comes from it. Each pack that you open is randomized. Certain cards will appear more often, etc., etc. It's kind of like a loot box, but they get out of the gambling accusations by not being able to cash out. At least they did at the time. Now, I've actually played, since then, I've played over 40 different trading card games, both ones that are in production currently and ones that are out of production, that are dead, as we call them. And what got me into this was, one day I was wandering through the Pokemon League. I had finished a match, and some kids were playing a game called Force of Will. I knew some of these people that played Pokemon were also playing Magic and whatnot, but what Force of Will was it was an anime card game, and it had a method of essentially dealing with the mana screw problem, which is a problem that Magic has, by doing some unique mechanics such as having a leader and separating your resource cards into a different deck. And this was something that I never seen before, and I was immediately interested. But my parents had already gotten onto some objections with Pokemon. They don't like the idea of collecting, and my mom specifically had done some research and gotten a hold of the idea that Pokemon is not only satanic, but promotes evolution. And because of that, she really didn't want me getting into other games. What essentially happened was we had some fights over stuff like over Force Will, but I still got into some stuff like Dice Masters and Legend of the Five Rings, which became one of my instant favorites. I still have almost all the cards from that game. And as I got older, I started working at 17. I got a job at Whataburger. And from there, I would have my own money. I could more consistently get into new games I wanted to try it. I tried Magic, Pokemon. I tried Yu-Gi-Oh, but could never really get into it. I played Force of Will, Dice Masters, like I said. I gave Star Wars Destiny a shot back when that was out. Tried the X-Wing miniatures game. I got a little bit into Warhammer because some of my friends got into that. And it kind of just snowballed into me being into this whole sphere of collectible games that I still love to this day. I still adore that genre of entertainment, and it's something I hope I can be a part of again someday. But for me right now, I don't have that access in time. My experience of the games, it was probably my first setting foot outside of the area that my parents had brought me into. Essentially, I've been raised very sheltered. We went to a house church that's a whole different conversation. That's something the freaking cult I was part of. It's not something we're going to go into today. But because of that, I didn't have this exposure to a lot of things outside of the home. And as I started going to like the game store that also had comic books and manga, I got exposed. I felt like I was getting exposed to this whole new world. And for me, that was a very positive experience. I grew a lot. I had some ups and downs along the way, but it's part of what got me here now. Formed a lot of my taste in entertainment and games. So why, if it's also great and it was also great at that time, a lot of people asked, why did I stop collecting? I still have a decent amount of cards on my shelf over here, some boxes and whatnot, but I sold off a lot of my collection. I stopped collecting because the community went downhill. We experienced during, especially the pandemic, we experienced a new card game boom. There was originally a card game boom in the early 2000s, which was where everything had a card game associated with it, and a lot of those died off after 2 years. What happened during the pandemic was, I blame certain influencers, but what happened was a lot of people took a hold of Pokemon specifically as an investment rather than a hobby. And what happens is you now have people scalping Pokemon and other card games off of the retail shelves, buying up everything, taking everything, and selling it at hyped up prices. This has killed off a lot of the community that I used to enjoy and has priced a lot of people out of the hobby. I've met people where their parents played Pokemon growing up and now they're having kids and their kids can't play Pokemon because they can't get a hold of the cards half the time. When I tried to get into Gundam because I love the anime so much, we ran into a problem where everyone was buying up everything so much that a regular rare was like $40 to get one copy of the card, and that's when I pulled out because I can't afford that. It kind of saddens me that a lot of the hobbies and interests are being treated as a quick buck rather than something that we'd play out of passion. I was there 10 years prior to the scalping boom, so I can tell you all what it's done to the hobby and the community. To see something we love, essentially, it feels almost violating to have this space that I used to retreat to be taken away by people who are just looking to profit off of it. So I needed the space and the money, and I don't have time with studies and work to play anymore, so I kind of sold off a lot of my collection. And I'm personally happy with that. I've been playing a lot more video games, single player games especially. In between studies, I've been focusing on studies and work, finally getting my life together. But that does lead me to where I'm going next with the hobby. I still play a few games. I play, once in a while, I'll play a game of Magic's Commander format, which is a more casual format for me. I play some stuff casually, but I don't really collect or compete like I used to. I used to play in tournaments and shit. I don't really do that anymore. And something I've always toyed around with the idea of making my own card game. I went to junior college for video game programming, and something that's always lodged in the back of my head is, well, what if this card game did this thing differently, or what if a card game had this mechanic? And for me, it was like, oh, I want to try it so hard, but something I often ran into is if I would make or print off cards to playtest with, no one would want to give it a shot because they knew me and didn't have a lot of faith in my ability to come up with an interesting combat system or an interesting deck construction gimmick. And it's something I might give a shot one day. I know it's becoming more and more accessible to indie publish your own games, and it's something I've always held interest in. I'll probably make a video talking about that at some point, but until then, I'm just kind of holding on to a bit of collection that I have sentimental value towards. I still have Legend of the Five Rings, some Warhammer, Underworlds, Pokemon, and others. But apart from that, I've kind of retired a lot from the hobby. Maybe I'll come back one day when I have the money and the time, but until then, it's just kind of chill, and hopefully the scalping will end at some point. Hopefully I'll have some more positive things to say about my next hobby video. I'm sure I will later this week when I discuss things like Gundam, but until then, cheers.